For more than 3 decades, the world laughed at a man who barely spoke, a man with a brown suit, a red tie, and a strange way of looking at the world. His name was Mr. Bean. Millions of people grew up watching his silent mischief, his awkward decisions, and the ridiculous situations he somehow managed to survive. But while audiences laughed at the character, very few people truly understood the man behind him. Because behind the rubbery expressions and perfectly timed chaos was an actor whose real life was far more complicated than the character he played. That man was Rowan Atkinson. Before we continue, take 1 second to like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you don't miss more real stories like this. To the world, he was the genius comedian who created one of the most recognizable comedy characters in television history. But privately, he was dealing with frustrations, criticism, personal struggles, and a career that slowly became trapped inside a single role. For decades, fans believed they knew everything about Mr. Bean. But after more than 30 years, one of the strangest rumors about the character has finally been addressed. And the truth surprised many people. The story of Mr. Bean actually begins long before the character appeared on television. Rowan Atkinson was born in a small town in northern England. It was a quiet place, far away from the lights of television studios or the excitement of show business. His family had no connection to entertainment at all. His father worked as a farmer and businessman, while his mother focused on raising their children. Atkinson grew up in a normal household with 3 older brothers. Nothing about his childhood suggested that he would one day become one of the most famous comedians in the world. But there was one challenge that shaped his early life in a powerful way. Rowan Atkinson had a severe stutter. Speaking in front of others was extremely difficult for him. Simple sentences that came easily to other children became obstacles he had to fight through. At school, conversations were stressful. Public speaking felt almost impossible. In an era when speech disorders were often misunderstood, it could easily have destroyed his confidence. But strangely, that challenge helped shape the very skill that would later make him famous. Because while speaking was difficult, physical expression came naturally to him. A look, a gesture, a movement, a reaction, these things communicated emotions without needing words. And over time, Atkinson began to realize that humor did not always need dialogue. Sometimes a single expression could make people laugh harder than a long joke. His academic life followed a very different path from comedy. Atkinson was extremely intelligent and deeply interested in science and engineering. He studied electrical engineering at Newcastle University before continuing his education at the Queen's College, Oxford, where he completed a master's degree. At Oxford, something unexpected happened. He joined the university's dramatic society and began performing in small comedy sketches. At first, it was simply a way to socialize and try something new. But soon, people began to notice that Atkinson had a very unusual comedic style. His performances relied heavily on facial expressions, body language, and awkward characters who seemed completely out of place in normal social situations. During this time, he met a writer who would later change his career forever, Richard Curtis. Together, they began developing comedy material that mixed clever writing with Atkinson's unique physical performance style. Soon after, Atkinson began appearing on television, including the satirical sketch show Not the 9 O'Clock News. The program quickly became popular in Britain and helped establish him as one of the country's most promising comedic talents. Later, he starred in another famous series called Blackadder, a show filled with sharp dialogue and intelligent humor. In Britain, Atkinson was already considered a brilliant comedic actor, but internationally, something very different would define his career. In the late 1980s, Atkinson and Curtis started developing a new character. Their idea was simple but unusual. They wanted to create a man who barely spoke, a character whose humor relied almost entirely on visual storytelling rather than dialogue. The inspiration came from legendary silent film comedians like Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. These performers had proven decades earlier that comedy could cross language barriers if it relied on visual storytelling instead of words. Eventually, the character needed a name. After trying different ideas, the creators chose something intentionally simple: Mr. Bean. The character had almost no background story. He had no clear job, no known family, and very little dialogue. His entire personality was built around awkward curiosity and bizarre problem-solving. He approached everyday situations in ways that made absolutely no sense, and that was exactly why people loved watching him. The show Mr. Bean premiered on New Year's Day in 1990. From the very first episode, the reaction was explosive. Audiences immediately connected with the character. His strange logic, silent reactions, and childlike misunderstandings created a type of comedy that worked everywhere. Unlike most shows, Mr. Bean did not rely on language or cultural jokes. Anyone could understand it. Within a few years, the show spread far beyond Britain. It was eventually broadcast in more than 190 countries. The character appeared in films, animated series, commercials, and even a special performance during the 2012 London Olympic opening ceremony. Mr. Bean became a global icon. But that success created a strange problem for Rowan Atkinson. Outside the United Kingdom, most audiences did not recognize his other work. They did not know about Blackadder or his earlier comedy shows. To them, he was simply Mr. Bean. Wherever he went, people shouted the character's name. At restaurants, airports, and public events, strangers treated him as if the fictional character were real. Over time, this became frustrating because the truth about Mr. Bean, the rumor that fans had debated for decades, had nothing to do with the difficulty of the performance. Instead, it had something to do with the character himself. Because from the very beginning, something about Mr. Bean felt unusual, something that viewers noticed but could never fully explain, and the clue had been hiding in the show's opening scene all along.
For years, fans noticed something strange about the way Mr. Bean entered the world. Every episode of the show began with the same mysterious scene. A beam of light appeared in the night sky. Then suddenly, the character dropped from above and landed on the ground as if he had fallen from somewhere far beyond Earth. A choir sang softly in Latin while he looked around in confusion, almost like someone who had never seen the world before. At first, most viewers assumed the opening was simply a creative way to introduce the character. Television shows often use dramatic or symbolic introductions to grab attention. But as the years passed, fans began noticing details that made the scene feel less like a simple visual effect and more like a hidden clue. Mr. Bean behaved differently from every other comedy character. He didn't understand basic social rules. Things that most people learn naturally during childhood seemed completely foreign to him. Waiting in line confused him. Ordering food at a restaurant became a complicated adventure. Even simple objects seemed fascinating to him, as if he were encountering them for the first time. He studied everyday items with intense curiosity. Sometimes he would poke, twist, or experiment with objects in ways that made no logical sense. It was funny, but it was also unusual. The more people watched the show, the more they felt that Mr. Bean was not simply awkward or socially clumsy. He seemed like someone trying to understand a planet he had never visited before. This idea slowly spread across fan discussions. People began forming a strange theory that explained everything. According to the theory, Mr. Bean was not actually a normal human being at all. He was an alien. The opening scene where he fell from the sky was not just a joke, it was literal. The character had arrived on Earth from somewhere else. His confusion about human behavior was the result of someone learning how society worked from scratch. His silence was not just a comedic style, it was the behavior of someone who never fully mastered human language. For years, this theory remained nothing more than speculation. Fans discussed it online, debated the clues, and pointed out strange details in different episodes. But the creators of the show rarely addressed the topic directly. They allowed the mystery to remain part of the character's charm. Then, eventually, Rowan Atkinson decided to talk about it. In interviews over the years, Atkinson explained that the Mr. Bean character was intentionally designed to feel slightly alien, not necessarily a traditional science fiction alien with spaceships and planets, but a character who existed outside normal human behavior. The goal was to create someone who looked at everyday life with completely fresh eyes. When the idea was first developed, the creators wanted Mr. Bean to feel like an outsider observing human society. That is why he often reacts to normal situations with confusion or curiosity. He approaches problems using strange logic because he does not follow the same rules that everyone else does. The famous opening scenes supported that idea perfectly. When the character falls from the sky, it symbolically suggests that he comes from somewhere else. He arrives on Earth, stands up, looks around, and begins trying to navigate a world he does not fully understand. The choir music even adds to the mysterious feeling of the moment, making it seem almost supernatural. Over time, this interpretation became widely accepted among fans. In fact, many viewers now believe that the alien concept explains why the character remained funny for so many years. Because Mr. Bean is not limited by normal human behavior, the writers could place him in any situation and allow his strange logic to create chaos. But while fans enjoyed the mystery surrounding the character, the real life of the actor behind him was going through major changes. For many years, Rowan Atkinson lived a relatively private personal life. In 1990, the same year the Mr. Bean television series premiered, he married Sunetra Sastry. She was a makeup artist who had worked behind the scenes in television productions. Unlike many celebrity couples, they kept their relationship out of the spotlight. Together, they built a family and had 2 children. For more than 22 years, their marriage appeared stable and quiet. While Atkinson traveled around the world filming projects and promoting his work, Sastry focused on raising their children and maintaining a private life away from media attention. But like many long relationships under the pressure of fame, cracks eventually appeared. By the early 2010s, rumors began circulating that the marriage was struggling. The couple appeared together less often, and their public appearances became rare. Then, in 2014, news broke that Atkinson had begun a relationship with actress Louise Ford. The situation quickly attracted public attention because Ford was significantly younger than him, and reports suggested that their relationship had begun before his previous marriage officially ended. Soon after, Rowan Atkinson and Sunetra Sastry finalized their divorce after 24 years together. For their children, the separation was painful. Their daughter, Lily Sastry, later spoke about how difficult the period had been for her emotionally. Their son chose a very different path, eventually joining the British Army and living a life far removed from the entertainment industry. Meanwhile, Atkinson continued his relationship with Louise Ford, and the couple later welcomed a daughter together. Despite the personal changes in his life, Atkinson continued working in film and television. However, he began speaking more openly about the challenges of playing Mr. Bean. In several interviews, he admitted something that surprised many fans. He didn't always enjoy playing the character. The physical demands of the role were extremely exhausting. Every episode required intense concentration and repeated physical performances. As he grew older, the strain became even more difficult. Eventually, he began suggesting that live-action appearances of Mr. Bean might come to an end. Instead, animated versions of the character allowed him to continue the legacy without the same physical pressure. In recent years, Atkinson also entered public debates on topics far removed from comedy. One of the most controversial moments came when he wrote an opinion piece criticizing the rapid push toward electric vehicles. Drawing on his background in electrical engineering, he argued that the environmental impact of manufacturing electric car batteries was often underestimated. He suggested that keeping older vehicles longer might sometimes be better for the environment than constantly replacing them with new electric models. The article sparked intense debate among experts and environmental activists. Some agreed that the discussion about vehicle emissions should include manufacturing and resource extraction. others strongly disagreed, arguing that electric vehicles still produce significantly lower lifetime emissions than petrol cars. Atkinson also spoke about the issue of modern cancel culture. He argued that comedy requires freedom to explore controversial topics and that jokes often involve uncomfortable ideas. According to him, a society that restricts humor too tightly risks losing an important form of artistic expression. These opinions surprised many people because they contrasted sharply with the innocent image of the silent comedy character that made him famous. But through all the debates, controversies, and personal changes, one thing remained constant: the legacy of Mr. Bean. More than 30 years after the first episode aired, the character still makes audiences laugh around the world. Children discovering the show today react to the same visual humor that entertained their parents decades earlier. Very few television characters manage to remain popular across multiple generations and cultures. Mr. Bean is one of those rare exceptions. And perhaps the reason for that lasting success lies in the strange mystery that surrounded him from the beginning. Whether you see him as a socially awkward man or as a visitor from another world trying to understand human behavior, the character continues to capture people's imagination. In the end, the rumors about Mr. Bean were never really about aliens or science fiction. They were about the idea of seeing the world differently. Because when you watch Mr. Bean struggle with everyday life, you are really watching someone experience the world with complete curiosity and confusion. And sometimes that fresh perspective is exactly what makes the ordinary moments of life so funny.